Hey guys, it's Greg again with Thriving on Tech. Been off for a few weeks, just taking a break as well as upgrading some equipment. But today I wanted to talk about an epilepsy topic. We spent a lot of time discussing cancer, computer building, so I wanted to kind of branch off and discuss this topic. I think it's very important that we talk about it because I think epilepsy is one of the more misunderstood and kind of forgotten diseases. I think this is partially due to that it is typically not terminal. There are treatments available for most patients, and some patients are able to be seizure-free with just taking medication. Some other patients are eligible for surgery, and that surgery can fix them and they can remain seizure-free. That being said, there are about a third of patients that have something called drug-resistant epilepsy. This is something in which a patient typically is not eligible for a surgery. The reasons for this is many times when they do an MRI, they cannot actually find anything that's abnormal. It's either too small by the naked eye, and we just don't have the technology to detect that right now. Most drug-resistant patients never are able to be seizure-free. They're typically taking high doses of medication and eventually having to jump to different medications to keep the seizures manageable, but in most cases not necessarily stopped. For me personally, I do have drug-resistant epilepsy. My experience has been that we did several brain MRIs and we're not able to find anything abnormal. And I'm currently now on my 4th and 5th medications that we've tried. So I'm taking 2 medications, very high doses, and I still have not been seizure-free for more than a year. I typically have about a few seizures a year, which I'm very thankful that I'm not having more, because a lot of drug-resistant epileptic patients have, seizures several times a week, even several times a day. So I'm definitely very lucky for that. However, it would be nice to be seizure-free one day. I want to take a few minutes discussing a technology that may be able to help neurologists diagnose and treat seizures, even for drug-resistant epileptic patients. So there is a research group of scientists at the Center for Brain and Cognition Research Institute, and they are working to develop a technology that will make it easier to detect seizures, even seizures invisible to the naked eye. So I'm now going to go through a few bullet points to kind of give you an overview of this technology and explain how this technology actually works and what it means for future epileptic patients. So the name of this technology is called BrainFocus iEEG. It's a cloud-based software that assists neurologists in the localization of the epileptic focus from intracranial EEG recordings, saving up to 90% of reviewing time and highlighting pathological activity that remains invisible to the naked eye, invisible to human eye. Our solution provides the clinician with a patient report featuring an automatic localization of the epileptic focus, a description of the characteristic ictal onset patterns, and spatiotemporal maps representing the dynamic activation and propagation of the recorded regions during each seizure. So that was that was a pretty complex statement there. So basically, this technology will allow neurologists to more effectively identify where the seizure is taking place, what type of patterns are connected to seizures with an individual person. Additionally, it can also provide details in which how the seizure travels throughout the brain. So a seizure typically starts in one area, and then it will travel to various areas throughout the brain. And depending which areas of the brain can determine what the type of seizure it is. So to kind of continue our discussion, the EMU coordinator highlighted that the new software has been capable of finding information on the brain's electrical activity in patients in whom it would have been impossible to distinguish with the naked eye. These advantages will be a great help in planning surgery to treat drug-resistant epilepsy. So that right there, you've got the researchers underscoring that yes, this will be able to typically be able to now find seizures that previously would not have been able to occur. Not only that, but this could potentially lead to surgeries for patients that before were not eligible for surgery. So, an overview of how this brain iEEG works. It starts with the user, so the patient being monitored right here. That is what the monitoring looks like when a patient is hooked up to an EEG. Basically, that's what the report currently looks like. Once that report is generated, it then goes to the cloud-based system, and that's where all the analysis takes place and the automation of the data occurs. And out of that, you've got the seizure propagation maps, so showing all the different channels in the person's brain where the seizure is occurring. You've got the patient report showing the onset zones where it's occurring, and the identification of patterns. And then you have post hoc analysis, which talks about potentially seizure recurrence, the unique aspects of each seizure, and a lot more information. So this sums up the impact of BrainFocus. Prior to doing this, most EEG analysis was time-consuming, it was manual, and it had to be done in site. So wherever the hospital was, it would have to be done right there in the building. It was also subjective because you have a person interpreting that EEG report. So it is possible that two different people could look at the same EEG report and come up with not only a different outcome, but also a different analysis and diagnosis. And then finally, the report that they typically do provide, it does have details, but it's more summaries, and it's very hard to predict based on those summaries. When BrainFocus is implemented, it'll be data-driven, automized, and distributed. Since it's in the cloud, you don't have to have a tech or an epileptologist looking at it in that specific hospital where it's occurring. And then also very important is being objective. It will be able to make objective predictions and analysis based on the data that it collects. And then finally, it's adapted and patient personalized. So that's a little bit about BrainFocus. To further explain how it works, I did want to go through just a quick example to show everyone how this might potentially help someone like myself or another person that is still having seizures after taking medication or even having a surgery. So in this example, we have a 45-year-old woman who experienced adult onset epilepsy when she was 26. And when she started having seizures, she had about 2 to 3 per week. This patient underwent, the typical EEG monitoring, and they were diagnosed with left temporal lobe epilepsy. Left temporal lobe being where the seizure originates. This patient actually since they were able to identify where the seizure took place, they were able to perform a surgery, and this patient was seizure-free for 3 months. However, after that time period, the patient relapsed with 1 to 2 month seizures of 1 to 2 months apart. When this patient was monitored using BrainFocus, they were able to find a secondary place where the seizure was occurring. So essentially, it found a second place where the seizure was occurring, and if they remove that second place, they might be able to get the seizures to stop again. So that's a little bit about brain iEEG and what it means for epileptic patients. This is a technology that's currently not on the market and is only being used in research situations for now. But the research group, wants to get this technology to market within about 2 years. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked, go ahead and press the like button and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.